eastern France. January 26, 1945. Snow covers the ground, outside the small village of Holzwehr. A German force, 6 Tiger tanks and 250 infantry, is advancing through the tree line. The American company in their path has been reduced from 120 men to 18. Every officer is dead or wounded. Every officer, except one, a 20-year-old second lieutenant from a small town in Texas. His name is Audie Murphy. What he does in the next hour will earn him the Medal of Honor, the Distinguished Service Cross, 33 decorations in total, and the title of the most decorated American combat soldier of World War II. But first, you need to understand where he came from. Audie Murphy was born on June the 20th, 1925, in Hunt County, Kingston, Texas. His family were sharecroppers. They rented land they could barely work in a part of Texas so dry and poor that hunger was a constant. His father, Emmett Murphy, abandoned the family when Audie was still young. His mother, Josie Bell, raised 12 children on almost nothing. When Audie was 15, his mother died. The children were split between relatives and an orphanage. Audie went to work, picking cotton, hunting for food. In December 1941, Audie Murphy was 16 years old. He tried to enlist immediately. The Marine Corps looked at him and turned him away. Too small, too young. The Navy turned him away too. His sister helped him falsify his birth records. He added a year, making himself 17 instead of 16. The Army accepted him. He was 5 feet 5 inches tall. He weighed 112 pounds. He was a child from a cotton field in Texas who could not read properly, who had never owned much of anything, and he was about to become the most decorated combat soldier in American history. Murphy was deployed to the Mediterranean in February 1943. He saw his first combat in Sicily and then Italy. His friend and fellow soldier, Laddie Tipton, was shot and killed pretending to surrender by a German soldier. Murphy went back to that German machine gun position, alone, and wiped it out. He received his first of many decorations. By the time the 3rd Infantry Division reached France in 1944, Murphy had already received the Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, and 2 Bronze Stars. Murphy did not want glory. He wanted to survive, and to keep his men alive, which in Murphy's case often meant doing things himself that he did not want to ask of others. By January 1945, the Allied forces were fighting through the Colmar Pocket, the last significant German stronghold on French soil. A force of 30,000 German soldiers dug into a pocket of territory around the city of Colmar in eastern France, had been resisting for 2 months. Murphy's unit, Company B of the 15th Infantry Regiment, was ordered to advance toward the heavily fortified village of Holzwehr. They moved forward through snow and frozen ground into territory the Germans were not willing to give up. The morning of January 26th began badly. German fire struck the American lines from multiple directions. The commander of Company B was wounded early and had to be evacuated. Every other officer in the company was killed or wounded within the first hours of fighting. When the smoke of that first engagement cleared, the command of Company B fell to the only officer left standing, Second Lieutenant Audie Murphy. He was 19 years old. The company he now commanded had started the day at 120 men. After the morning's fighting, they had 18 left standing. At around 2 in the afternoon, the German counterattack began. 6 Tiger tanks, some of the most powerful ground weapons in the German arsenal, rolled out of the tree line, accompanied by approximately 250 German infantry soldiers. This was not a probing attack. This was designed to be overwhelming, to break through the American line and push the 3rd Division back from Holzwehr. Murphy assessed the situation with the cold clarity that had kept him alive through 2 years of combat. His 18 men against 6 Tiger tanks and 250 soldiers in an open field, in daylight. He ordered his men to fall back to the tree line. He would cover their retreat. He grabbed his M1 carbine. He grabbed his radio, and he began directing American artillery fire against the advancing Germans from his exposed position in the open. The Germans kept coming. Murphy's carbine ran out of ammunition. He was about to fall back himself when he saw something. A burning M10 tank destroyer, hit by German fire, sitting in the open field beside him. The crew had already abandoned it. Its engine was on fire. Its fuel tanks could explode at any moment, and mounted on its turret was a fully loaded 50 caliber Mach. What Audie Murphy did next was described by the men who watched it as the most extraordinary act of individual combat any of them had ever seen or would ever see. He climbed onto the burning tank destroyer, alone, in the open, with German tanks advancing toward him, on top of a vehicle that could detonate under him at any moment, and he began to fight. He opened fire with the 50 caliber machine gun. He swept it across the advancing German infantry. He directed artillery over his radio with one hand while firing with the other. He called in strikes so close to his own position that his commanders later said they could barely believe he survived them. The Germans concentrated fire on him. Multiple tanks turned their guns toward the burning tank destroyer. Murphy kept firing for over 1 hour. He held that position alone. He killed more than 20 German soldiers. He wounded more. He disrupted the entire advance. The 6 Tiger tanks, uncertain what they were facing, eventually pulled back. The German infantry broke and retreated. When it was over, Murphy climbed down from the burning tank destroyer and walked back to his men in the tree line. He had been wounded during the action. He had not mentioned it to anyone. When his men asked if he was all right, he told them he was fine. The burning tank destroyer exploded shortly after he left it. Company B held the line. Audie Murphy suffered from what we now call post-traumatic stress disorder. In 1945, it was called battle fatigue, and soldiers were largely expected to get over it. Murphy refused to be silent about it. At a time when discussing mental health was considered weakness, and when veterans were expected to come home and simply carry on, Murphy spoke publicly about his nightmares, his depression, his inability to leave the war behind. He advocated to the United States government for better research and better treatment of veterans returning from Korea and Vietnam. His commander called him a one-man army on the battlefield. Off it, he was perhaps something more important. A man willing to say, out loud, that war does not leave when the guns stop. On May the 28th, 1971, Audie Murphy was killed in a private plane crash near Roanoke, Virginia. He was 45 years old. He is buried at Arlington National Cemetery in a grave that receives more visitors than almost any other, except that of President Kennedy. The boy from the cotton fields of Texas, who was too small for the Marines, too young for the Navy, who climbed onto a burning tank because someone had to, is still there, in the ground of the country he would not stop fighting for. Subscribe to Warfold. We cover one story, one soldier, one truth.